All right, we're ready to start this panel, our third panel. We're joined by Terence Mickey, Sarah Massey, and Bruce Reynolds. I'm going to do just a quick introduction, and because I haven't done this before, pardon me. Bruce Reynolds is the founder of International Black Heritage Month, an annual event in June celebrating Black cultures worldwide, educating on diversity and promoting unity from all people in service of more than just an inclusive world. Bruce's rich professional background includes leading community engagement as a part of DEI efforts at Dentsu and as a leading correspondent on The Newsroom and BBC Breakfast. Sarah Massey is a seasoned communications expert with a passion for creating inclusive and safe spaces, with a career spanning various sectors, government entities and NGOs like the AFL-CIO, Project Vote, and National LGBTQIA Task Force. Ooh! Her work is driven by the commitment to social justice and a vision of a more equitable world. Sarah's expertise in communication, coupled with her dedication to inclusivity, helps bring out the freak in all of us. Yes. And last but not least, Terence Mickey aligns each audience group's purpose with a highly effective communication strategy. Terence helps brands avoid abstractions, authentically connect to audiences, simplify complex ideas, and inspire action. He's worked with Fortune 500 companies like Procter & Gamble, Google, Nike, Ford, Cigna, MassMutual, Novo Nordisk, Chanel, Fashion, Vanguard, amongst others. Welcome, and please a round of applause for our team. So, Bruce, I'm gonna start with you.
Okay.
International Black Heritage Month. We're sitting in a space. We're sitting in. It's Pride Week in Amsterdam. We are LGBTQIA plus intersectional founders, leaders, changemakers, people working in our communities, and you're leading International Black History Month. You built International Black Heritage Month. I apologize. Right. International Black Heritage Month. And so, those are global stories. Like the LGBTQIA story is global as well. Black heritage is a global story. How did you start? Where did you start?
Looking at the problem. So I basically birthed it after George Floyd. So when George Floyd had died, I was in America. And being Black British, a lot of the narrative was about how it affects African Americans, whereas it affects anyone who's basically Black or from the Afro diaspora. But that conversation wasn't really being had. I'm mixed. I have nephews and nieces who are mixed. And again, if you're and they clearly mixed. Dad is Irish, the other one, mother's Jamaican. So it's like, where are they in that conversation? Because you have the Black and white issue, but then you also have the Black within the Black issue as well. And I was just left Dentsu as Director of Social Impact, and a big thing in corporate world is about diversity and inclusion. But how can you have inclusion if there's such ignorance regarding the diversity? So it was really key that we need to bring some education here. And during that time, it was all about posting the Black Square and Instagram and stuff like that. And so for me, with my experience, it was a case of what can I contribute? I've worked in media, marketing, and all of that. It's like, what can I contribute to this space and help bring about education? So that is basically how it was birthed. Another big thing that I really want to share with you is the importance of legacy, because ultimately the world just didn't arrive. We're living in the legacy of people's decision-making, how people live their lives. So I really encourage you during your storytelling and what you're working on, that you look at it through the lens of legacy. What legacy do you want to leave today with each one of your participants? Because legacy is just about when you die. It's when you leave the room. Even if you meet someone for a couple of seconds and either smile when you meet them or meet them with a frown, like, a legacy is being left. So it's really important that we really look at what legacy we wanted to leave moment by moment. So for me, it was a case of what legacy do I want to leave regarding this? And that was basically how International Black Heritage was birthed, because about, thank you. Because there are black cultures, around the world. You have Afro-Caribbeans, you have Afro-Mexicans, Afro-Latinos, you have Jamaican Jews, and black heritage isn't just skin color. I have friends who, look like Terence, but they say I'm Bayesian because I was born in Barbados. So I was born in, I have, you have Portuguese who are born in Mozambique who are white, and they say I'm African. Where are those conversations being had? And I think if they were, there'd be more inclusion and more appreciation of the diversity.
Yeah. And how do you discover those stories? Those stories are so diverse, wide-ranging, as you said, and they look diverse. They don't look necessarily like me or like you. Mm-hmm. How do you discover, what's like the one thing that helps you discover where those stories are to uncover them?
So the 3 pillars of International Black Heritage Month is education, celebration, unity. So education on the past, how do we end up here? You know what I mean? Like, really, any black person, why are they speaking English? Why are they speaking French? Why are they speaking Dutch? Because of colonization, whatever else. So education, and then also celebration, because it's important that we do celebrate the good that is happening, the cultural bridge building. One person that I, refer to a lot is someone like a Clive Davis, who's a white Jewish man, music mogul, but birthed the careers of Whitney Houston, Alicia Keys, funded Bad Boy Records with P. Diddy, and that's brought so much unity, it's brought so much education, it's given voice to so much creativity, and it's really impacted the world, but he's a white Jewish man. So where would somebody like him be honored and celebrated? Because in something like Black History Month, in America that happens in February, wouldn't really be a platform for it. So that's where a story would come from, for example. And then the 3rd pillar is unity, which is about unity moving forward, because ultimately we are moving forward, and we can either just arrive here or we can move forward with intention. So it's so important that intention is the anchor there, So it's about education, celebration, unity. And using those 3 pillars, that's where stories come out and meeting different people who we should highlight or situations.
Thank you. Sarah, I see you're nodding along with that. Exactly. You've emphasized the importance of really creating those inclusive communities and celebrating communities through your startup, Freak, but also in your professional career. So how does the concept of so there's one thing to find the stories, it's another thing to create the space and have a dialogue, right? Yep. Either with your users or with your partners. This idea of reciprocity, how does that play into the platforms that you've created, as well as kind of your background as well in advocacy?
Thank you. I really appreciate this. My name is Sarah Massey, and I go by Sarah Massey, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm an out poly, kinky, queer woman, and I'm a CEO of a tech startup called Freak. Thank you, FREEQ.love. And thank you. And I'm like shaking my head and I'm loving on everything that you're saying, because we were thinking about legacy when we founded Freak. So in 2020, when COVID-19 is coming, the world says shut down. And that means no Pride, no meetups, and as a member of the LGBTQ+ community, I was worried what it meant to go online to have meetings when these huge companies are data mining, data stealing, AI unleashing, and we're still a population at risk. So I found an amazing co-founder. He's a trans man. His name is Riley Lamy, and he helped me build a new technology that's more safe and more secure than Zoom or Google or anything else that you're on right now. And we don't data steal, we don't data mine, and we don't have any AI, because I think safety and security is incredibly important. So we have thrown over 300 live ticketed events on our own platform with partners from mostly the USA. You can hear from my accent, I'm American. And also because that's where I have my connections, like Folsom Street on, yes, thank you, yes, Folsom Street. Also very proud sponsor of International Miss Leather, International Miss Boo Black. I have a fan here, this is great. What are you doing later?
Connections.
Yes. And then, to go to, love it, to go to partnership, We live in a capitalist society. I don't love it. I'm a definite socialist. I'm an urban planner, but I have to use capitalism because it's what I live inside of. And we share money. So you do an event on Freak, we get a portion of the earnings, you get a portion of the earnings. That's partnership. I with love and respect, people die of exposure. I'm not giving people exposure. Every person who comes to an event, and we don't call our customers users, they're customers, pay to come to an event at Freak. And then we redistribute the money between us and our partnerships. So I think partners, when we're creating synergy and earnings together, that's a great motivator. And then legacy, when we first started Freak, we were told by the Kink and Polyfam that others were trying to do what we were doing, and we raced to do it first, and that was 2020, and we were the first, and we are still the only, as far as I know, out woman and out trans man co-led tech company on the planet. So when we were thinking about, well, what are we going to do with Freak now that COVID is over and everybody's back to IRL, we said, well, we got to keep going. And one of the reasons why we got to keep going is not only because we're the first and we're the most awesome, but it's also because that's simply unjust and wrong. And also what we found in these 300 events were people from all over who could not get to Amsterdam Pride. We're very, very privileged in this space right now. And the other group that we found is people who are not out of the closet yet. And they were able to spend, $10 and go to an event with us. And they got to meet other queers in a safe space. And that's a huge population, y'all. So legacy, I hope that eventually we become the entertainment, dynamo that we know that we are, spreading the message of queer joy and queer resilience, and that we're the first, and then that there are many, many others. We're going to open the doors.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. Legacy, legacy goes back to that kind of utopia as well, right? Because you have a view of the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 30 years. Not to mention the next minute.
Absolutely.
Right. Sarah, I think you touched on a point there that's really interesting. We talk about these shifts there's macro forces around us, right? Things just happen. Systems that we're within, that we work within. One of the big shifts was moving from a virtual to a physical IRL experience. How did your partnerships play a role, or what about your partnerships may have shifted? What types of partnerships may have shifted, or what were the relationships you had with your partners, the most critical partners? If you could provide an example, how those may have shifted moving from the virtual space into the physical space.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say something like in-house queer. Everybody wanted to get back to the party. And I don't blame our greater family, our greater community for doing it. And entertainment is an area where LGBTQ+ people pay money, and where we have resources. And people are like, let me just get right back to the in real life show, except for International Miss Leather, International Miss Boot Black. I want to give them tons of props. We help them do a fully in real life and virtual conference in April. So Freak facilitated all of their audiovisual, and we did a whole bunch of their online work as well. And it is the first kink conference fully hybrid. And I think that's the future. I think what we learned during this time was we were not as accessible as we all wanted to be. And this is one of the most accessible conferences ever. And they learned during that. I think we have to learn the lesson of privilege, and I think COVID showed me and a lot of other folks that the in real life is a privilege, and there's so many of us who need the facilitating to connect, and that's where we're going. Was that the question? Oh, my partnership. So the partnership.
I'm just sitting here taking notes. I'm like, okay. Okay.
The partnership with International Miss Leather, International Miss Boot Black will live on forever. It was the first kink conference to ever do this. I'm really interested in helping our kink family get more spotlight front and center. Some of the other partnerships just dissolved because they wanted to go back in real life. Some of the partnerships dissolved because they couldn't make any finances. But going forward, we're now partnering with apps, especially, who are seeking to empower the greater LGBTQ plus and sex-positive communities. Yeah. And that's where we're going.
That's really, I think if I were to summarize it, it really comes down to those choices that you've had to make that continue to support your community. And you don't call them users, you call them customers.
Yes.
Right? That continue to support your customers and continue to be accretive to their experience, right?
Yeah. They tell us they want to be online. They want to have a great time online.
Exactly.
And we can supply it. And to go back to the celebration, I've been in civil rights work for decades. And when I was ultimately a professional queer at the National LGBTQ plus Task Force, which is the oldest LGBTQ plus civil rights organization in the USA, what I learned most is that queers love to celebrate. So we go work hard all day long advocating for our rights on the Hill, and then we go and throw a Madonna dance party. Yes, right? And it helps us with our resilience. And so I wanted to emulate that and keep that going with all the work that I do now.
Work hard, play hard. That's right. Yeah. I like to sing.
Love that.
I'd love to take that question to Terence, actually, around choices, kind of coming back to those choices that we have to make over the course of our journeys, our personal and professional journeys. You've had the experience of seeing a lot of organizations working with one-on-one with a number of leaders across industries, across sectors. Tell us about the importance of choice through our storytelling journey. Where does choice play a role in sharing our stories and engaging with our partners?
It's difficult to choose. I think everybody has a lot to communicate, and everyone feels that everything's important. And I often use people are cursed by their own knowledge. They have this wealth of information, they have a wealth of concerns, and when they're thinking about communicating it to another person, you can't just dump your brain on the floor and expect someone to kind of understand it. You really have to select for yourself either what's the most important thing for you, but I'd say what is the commonality between you and who you're talking to? And what's that one thing that you share that can be then the kind of conversation starter for all the information that can follow. So I think that choice is the first thing to do because you really want to be selective about what am I communicating and who am I communicating to and where are we connected. You don't want to overwhelm somebody. So it's actually an act of kindness and generosity to choose first and get really core, understand your point and then share that information with them. But it's hard. I think there's so much you want. It's all important to you. It's so close to your heart that's a really difficult thing. I mean, similar to Graham's talk about money, every yes is, thousands of no's. So how do you really think about what is that yes? And for me, the yes is who is that person that I'm talking to? What is their concern? Who are they? What would connect with them? Storytelling is about connection.
Yeah. I'm going to cut to the quick on this. What's one trick? Yes. Yes, we have to go through thousands of no's. But, have you seen any patterns in getting to that yes?
Oh, yeah, there is one trick. Listen. I think, what was it, Philip Glass, something like listening, something we wish we could do. I think generally, even if you think we're a good listener, which I think I'm a good listener, I'm a horrible listener. There's plenty of times where I'm distracted, I'm not present. And if you really sit with someone and you're embodied and you're listening to them, you will get so much information about who they are, what they want, what they're afraid of. And you can use that for good or evil. That's the power of connecting with somebody. When you are really listening and really present with somebody, the information will come. when you're telling a story, how vulnerable you are depends on, is someone listening to me or someone not listening to me? And you feel it yourself. When someone's really paying attention, you will share things that you normally wouldn't. You feel comfortable. The conversation's easy. So I think to get that yes, become a listener. Become really attuned to what is someone who's other than me saying, what preoccupies them, and that's asking them questions and being really open, even if you're uncomfortable with the answers, just sitting with that and saying, okay, this is where that person is. And then you can start to say, like, okay, where do I have some connection, some commonality? Where's an in for me that I can start a conversation? Yes doesn't happen instantly. I think you just get a door open, and then you build a relationship, and then that yes comes from relationships.
Yeah. And I see the panelists nodding.
Yeah, I'd like to probably just build on that, because when it comes to listening, I mean, with communication basis, there's a sender and a receiver. So this person is sending information, you're the receiving, you're the receiver of that information, and it's so important that you're mindful of how am I receiving that information, you know what I mean? Because we are all conditioned people. We all have a value and a belief system, and our listening can be heard through our conditioning. So it's really important that you assess, what is it that I believe and why do I believe that? And what is it that they believe and why do they believe that? Because that's going to affect your listening.
Yeah. Is there one specific instance that you can think of where, because I think the platform of International Black Heritage Month, you're receiving a lot of stories, right? And how has listening been kind of an unlock either for the stories you're receiving or sharing with the community?
Ultimately, when people say stuff, whether it's online, whether it's in the news, or just history books, it's like, well, why do they believe that? Ultimately, like why are they saying that? So if someone's like, victimhood or something like that, it's like, well, why do they believe, why people believe in that, we are victims? Why is it that people may believe that we are less than because of the conditioning that's happened, over time. So for example, if you go to some places, people who are, I don't even like to use the word black, but we have to use it because that's the language that we use, because we're not black, we're brown. But anyway, but if you go to some establishments, the security guard will be black and the cleaners will be black, versus them being the CEO of the company, could be a black female CEO. So there's a thing of, if you can't see it, you can't be it, right? And so it's a case of why is it people, and so when people see that, they then believe that's probably all what those people want to aspire to.
So it's really listening for those belief systems, those structures, and being able to address them or unpack them in a constructive way.
Absolutely, and listening obviously is audible, but it's also visual as well. Listening is visual. It's not just audio. So it's important that we are aware of all those things when we meet with with partners and stuff. As what I'm saying, or even how I'm looking, how is it going to be received? Because again, we're sending information. We're sending information of what we wear. We're sending information of what we say. How's it going to be received? Not saying you have to go in there looking like, I don't know, a banker. If really, you're a drag queen who's, Tallulah partying on you know what I mean? Like, do you? Yeah. But at the same time, will you be received in the way that you want to receive to achieve what you want to achieve?
Yeah. Sarah, I saw.
I have a story about this, and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're being. So, I think one of the reasons why I'm in the room is because I have a startup and a tech startup, and I was told that, in order to be attractive to venture capitalists in this world of funding, which is like a big thing here in the Netherlands, they want to be very competitive in this country. And they're looking for unicorns. And I was like, I'm already a unicorn. I had to learn all about that. It wasn't the kind they wanted. Or maybe that's a whole other story. But so I go in and, they tell you when you have a startup that you need your data. How many users do you have? What's your ROI? What's your this? What's your that? And what's the problem you're trying to solve? And so at Freak, the problem that we were talking about was that LGBTQ+ people are still not safe on the planet. LGBTQ plus BIPOC people are still not safe. And hence, we need our own platform with more safety, security done by us, for us. And it was like I was hit with a wall of no, just by their body language, well, I don't understand what you mean. Here in Amsterdam, everything's great. We got gay marriage in 2001. Okay, so at first it hurt my feelings, but then I realized that I wasn't listening well enough to them. And so I tried a new tactic, which was instead of the data and the point and the problem that I'm trying to solve, I said, well, have you ever been to Pride? Especially here in the Netherlands. They're really proud about their Pride here, right? And, oh yeah, I went to Pride. And I would say, well, tell me about the experience that you had. Oh my goddess, it was the most joyous, the most free, the most amazing time of my life. And then I would say to them, well, why isn't that 365? What we're trying to do at Freak is take that joy and freedom and awesome 365, 24/7, online for the world to see. And then they would shake their heads. And then they would think about in their own personal life, yes, I know an LGBTQ plus person, and yes, I have heard that there was on-street violence, that they were experiencing discrimination, that they have a trans child and they don't know what to do. And then they would tell me their story. And then that would be the beginning of the relationship. Now, I'm saying all this in-house. It's a lot of ick for me. I don't think I should have to create your empathy and sympathy for the atrocity of what's occurring in the world in terms of discrimination and racism and homophobia. But, again, I'm first, so I'll take the hit. But then I go home, this is a lesson, and I go home and I get surrounded by family again and take care of myself and do the Madonna dance party so I can go back out and do it again.
Wow. There's a lot of care that goes into coming back from that.
Yeah. And also, just as the end point, I've decided that's not a path for us, for Freak. We are bootstrapped, we are self-funded. We're going to keep going on that path for a while.
And just off the back of that, actually, I mean, everyone has free will, right? And you can't force people to care about something if they don't care about it. Ultimately, it's like racism, for example, exists. It's alive and well. Some people care about it, some people don't. That is just the bottom line. It's like, gender inequality, the gender pay gap, LGBTQ issues. Some people are going to care about it, and some people don't. So I think it's so important that, we look for partners that care and have an interest in it versus spending that time and energy trying to convince somebody. You're going to get more mileage working with those that care about it. It's like on a very basic level. If you're hungry, it's going to be easier to go to dinner with someone who else is hungry versus trying to take someone to a restaurant who's already full.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of like excellent analogy. That is an excellent analogy.
I will say to that story, like the notion of presenting all your facts and data, for me, it never works. Only because the way we receive information, we're emotional beings. Mm-hmm. And logic, we can get some places with logic, but it's often it stops, everything. And when you connect, I get the ick factor, but it's also, I think, it's funny, I think people are looking for excuses to be emotional in life because we're so devoid of emotion most of the time. So a presentation that could even have an inkling of emotion, I think people are so hungry for like, oh my God, some humanity, something that I can relate to. It's far more powerful than facts and numbers, which come into play later, but I think to just begin a conversation or some commonality, that emotional part. And I don't mean it to be manipulative or it's got to be genuine and authentic, but you may get the ick factor because I think people are strangers to themselves and their own emotions. So once you open that gate, be forewarned. Anything can come out but most of it, some of it can be good.
Yeah, and I'm saying a lot. Am I saying?
Yeah, please. This is the excellent.
Yeah, and with storytelling as well, which is what this is about. I mean, data, can be interesting, but it's important to tell kind of the story behind the data.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's the importance of storytelling. And that's why I'm going to share the video, actually.
You'd like to share the
Yeah,
video?
I'm going to show,
Beautiful. We have a little AV support here.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to try this.
It's like a minute, so it's not too long.
Do you want to preface?
Not at all.
Okay, let's jump in.
Yeah, let's just watch it.
Welcome.
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 Bienvenidos.
Välkommen.
Bienvenuta.
Willkommen.
欢迎.
Welcome. Welcome.
Welcome. Welcome.
International Black Heritage Month is an annual event in June celebrating Black cultures worldwide, educating on diversity and promoting unity from all people in service of a more just and inclusive world. Launched in 2021 after the events of George Floyd, International Black Heritage Month takes place in June to bridge Juneteenth in the US, Windrush Day in the UK, Portugal Day in Portugal, and Keti Koti in the Netherlands. How can you take part? It's easy. Go to the website internationalblackheritagemonth.com and make sure you go to the calendar to see what events are happening. And if you want to get involved, just send an email to smile@internationalblackheritagemonth.com.
Bem-vindos.
Thank you. So I could talk about the data till the cows come home, about there's this number of mixed race people, there's people from from Barbados or in Nigeria who are white and this, that, and the other, and give all the data. But this is slightly more intriguing because you're like, what is it? And so everyone in there is based on some black heritage, may look white, but they're black, their grandfather's black or something. So I just share that to say it's important to give a story, and you can tell it or show it. And so also just think about the visualization as well of whatever it is that you're doing, because that is so important, not only with the words that you're saying.
Yeah, and even in a story, you don't start with the crisis in a movie, you start with a character. So once you have a character that's someone you care about, then everything becomes interesting because you care about that person. So that's kind of the...
Yeah, yesterday we had an interesting kind of metaphor of like starting with the end in a way. There's the murder scene,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you care about that person. It's like, oh my God, who done it, right?
Exactly.
That's the who done it. So, through the twists and turns of, and again, I kind of come back to this idea of resilience. Having a vision sets us out for a journey. We're on a journey. On that journey, we may make decisions to continue trying to convince, right, other partners or not, or kind of go back to that. Sarah Massey, I kind of want to go back to something that you said. It was a very kind of critical decision you made.
Yeah.
Not to keep going into the room and convincing someone who may not look like you, may not think like you, or your community, or your customers. And you've gone to bootstrapping.
Yes.
So what about what have you had to build as a network, as a support ecosystem, given that you're not receiving that external funding and you're bootstrapping?
Yeah. So I think we're all clear when I talk about VCs versus bootstrapping. So bootstrapping is we're taking our own money and investing it in our own business versus a VC. That's a very typical. Less than 1% of VC funding in this country goes to women. So how much is going to go to queer women? And let's not even how much to QT BIPOC? I don't even know. So that was part of the reason that we just decided we weren't in the room. It's not a structure that represents us. And then with the bootstrapping, And then there's also what we call it gay uncle. So let's go back to the partnerships, right? So I'm still very excited. Maybe gay uncle is here. Gunkle. We've been talking to some gunkles who, and so the gay uncle being your rich gay uncle, dual income, no kids, put some money away, worked at Google, and made some money, and he understands how tech works, and he, she, they. Yeah, I've got, and also I'll be really transparent. Gay Uncle sometimes goes to the leather event at Folsom and International Miss Leather, International Miss Boob Black, and some other very edgy kind of spaces where I spend a lot of time. And so finding the person and the people who immediately understood what I was saying before I even finished the sentence. So we're building an LGBTQ plus entertainment platform on technology that we built ourselves, and then they would come in, yes, because in that way we can protect our customers and our content providers from the mega corporations that would further exploit and censor and be violent against us, right? And so they would finish, when I met the people who would finish that sentence for me, I knew that they were my people. And that they quickly understood. And then they were futurists as well, who were then thinking, what else can we do? What else can we do? And so I would say, start talking in-house, in family, in queer communities first, because there might be people there with resources and access who see the vision. And so we are talking to a couple of who would be then, loaning us money. It could perhaps be a shares opportunity. We will be building into shares in the near future, who can help finance together. But they've already got it. I'm not convincing them. And they are pretty much probably outside of the VC world. And then what I'd love to do, and this is my vision, and I do believe that we will get there, because the reason why Freak is going to make it is because the demand for queer content is off the hook. Yes, and the content producers, Hollywood, Broadway, you name it, Madonna, Michael, they're all based in the queer community, and that's where we're coming from. So us helping to match the content producers to make more money to queer audiences, it's a no-brainer. We will get there.
Paths of less resistance are super important to getting to that next stage.
I think so. And the way we organize is one-on-one as well. And so if we're already here organizing at Pride and the Kink events, we're taking care of ourselves.
Look forward.
The beautiful thing about that from the storytelling point of view is often the stories we tell are about the past or the crisis or what the problem is, but future storytelling is so much more exciting and imaginative, and it requires the same skill set of telling a story in the past. Like our brains are wired where memory is this recreation of images, and it's the same with imagining. You're using the same part of your brain to think about something that doesn't exist. So future storytelling it's much often more fun and engaging, and being a really good future storyteller, you really get your partners on board to kind of live out this future together, which is awesome.
The world of futures, which I've been in and actually come from, there's a line of what is our preferred future? What is our preferred future? Because sometimes we can just focus it on just what my preferred future is this. But when you do it like that, it's exclusionary, and what you may want may not land or work or even happen because it's excluding. But when you look at it and work through the lens of what is our preferred future in this room, now there's collaboration, and you can find where that win-win is, which is what Ron was speaking about, yesterday. So again, with your storytelling, think about, what is our preferred future? What is your preferred future?
The word future, can we unpack that a little bit? Because I think, sometimes when we think of our future, it's like 20 years out. But you said it from the beginning. It's
the here and
moment.
now, and the three things that I use for preferred future is respect, regard, and intention. I think those three pillars are so key. So respect. What's the respect for yourself? What's the respect for the other? What's the regard for yourself? And what's the regard for other? And when people respect and regard the same thing, no. Very quickly, respect is basically to consider something of high regard. And then regard is a protective interest or concern. So those are different. So what is the respect, what is the regard, and what is your intention? And when you use that framework for, immediately, you're now operating in a better future ultimately, because there's respect there, there's regard, there's a care, there's a care and regard, and there's an intention. You're clear on what you're wanting for the future.
That's excellent.
Love that.
Sarah Massey, there's also an immediacy to your future as well. It's you're building a pathway, out into that larger
I'm trying to
engagement.
queer entertainment more and more.
Yeah.
I have a degree in urban planning, which is a futurist degree. I think it helps to study future. And I've been a futurist for a long time. And one of the things that you just said just resonated a lot with me around the regard and the respect and the intention. And I want to honor our queer ancestors who I learned that from, and I'm learning it again from you right now. And, still in the USA where I'm from, it's not a society without discrimination and without incredible violence against so many of us. And what I've learned from greater queer family is to always hold that with every interaction that we have, and to always be looking out for the person who needs chosen family. I needed chosen family. I still need chosen family. I want to be that chosen family for you and for all of y'all, so that we can facilitate that vision of the future, the beloved community, together.
Absolutely, because I think when you look at any conflict, you can look at, well, where's the respect for the other? If someone's fighting another person, okay, so you respect yourself, but where's the respect for the other person? Where's the regard for the other? And what is the intention ultimately? So, any conflict, you can use that framework.
Love that.